Hey everyone, ready to unleash those printmaking superpowers.
We're going to dive deep into acing those Printmaker interviews, using those career guides you gave us, and a little AI magic from RoleCatcher, of course.
Think of this deep dive as like your interview cheat sheet, giving you the knowledge and those perfect answers to help you land that dream printmaking gig.
It's like having that insider's guide to understanding not just what to say, but like what really clicks with those hiring managers.
All right, so before we jump into the questions, let's get a feel for the printmaking world. The career guide paints this really cool picture of the printmaking landscape. It's
Huh.
so much more than just those old school printing presses.
Oh, definitely.
We're talking about creating like tangible art on all kinds of materials, wood, metal, even fabrics.
Yeah.
And they're using all this high-tech stuff, like etcher circuit processors.
Right.
Those are the ones that let you create those crazy, intricate designs, especially on those tiny details.
And the range of the field is just incredible.
Yeah.
The guide highlights the potential for like creative freedom, working across different mediums, maybe even becoming your own boss someday.
It definitely makes that whole starving artist thing
Right.
more of a choice than a requirement.
Right. Definitely.
But, let's be real. The guide doesn't sugarcoat the challenges either. There's competition for jobs, the hustle for financial stability, the physical demands of the work.
Right.
They even mention like potential hazards from some of the materials.
Yeah.
So safety is definitely a priority. I'm guessing that's where like really knowing your studio practices and materials inside and out becomes crucial.
Absolutely. Having that practical knowledge goes hand in hand with like your artistic vision.
Okay.
But speaking of showcasing your skills, let's dive into those interview questions. Remember, it's not just about like giving the quote unquote right answer. It's about showing them who you are as an artist, how you think.
All right. Question number 1. Straight from the interview guide. What inspired you to become a printmaker? Seems pretty straightforward, but I bet there's more to it than just saying, I like art. What do you think they're really getting at here?
It's all about your origin story. What sparked that creative fire in you? Was it like a specific artist's work, a class that like totally changed your perspective, maybe even a childhood memory? They want to see that genuine passion and get a glimpse of the person behind the portfolio.
So it's about making it personal.
Yeah.
And showing them what makes your journey into printmaking unique. I did notice that RoleCatcher suggested highlighting different inspirations based on the employer. Like, for example, if they're all about sustainability, maybe you talk about your love for natural dyes and eco-friendly printmaking.
Exactly. It's like RoleCatcher's giving you a nudge to personalize your answers. Show them you've done your homework. Now imagine they follow up with, what aspect of printmaking are you most drawn to and why? How would you approach that one?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think I'd talk about my love for the process, that feeling of transferring an image from a plate to paper, the textures and those subtle variations you get with each pull.
Yeah.
I'm curious, though, how would RoleCatcher help me tailor this for a specific job?
Well, let's say the job description really emphasizes precision and detail. RoleCatcher might suggest focusing on your experience with like etching or engraving, techniques that are known for their intricate detail.
Oh,
It's all about making those connections between your skills and what they need.
that makes a lot of sense. Okay, question number 2. Can you describe your printmaking process? It's got to be more than just listing the steps, right? What's the secret sauce to making this answer stand out?
Think of it like painting a picture. With words, walk them through your workflow. From that initial spark of inspiration to the final print, mention your go-to techniques, the tools you love, and don't be afraid to use really descriptive language to bring the process to life.
So instead of just saying I use a printing press, I could say something like, I love the feeling of inking up the plate, carefully laying the paper, and then using the press to create that magical transfer of image and texture.
Exactly. Now imagine they ask, what's the biggest challenge you faced in your process, and how did you overcome it?
Well, that's a good one. Testing those problem-solving skills. I think I'd talk about that time. I struggled with registration accuracy, basically making sure all the layers
Yeah.
of a multicolor print line up perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
I ended up creating a much more detailed system of guides and marks, which made a huge difference.
Smart.
I'm curious, though, how would RoleCatcher's feedback system come in handy here?
It can help you catch any spots where your answer might be like, unclear.
Or too technical. Remember, even if you're super familiar with terms like registration or ink viscosity, the interviewer might not be. RoleCatcher can suggest ways to rephrase, or explain those concepts more clearly. That's super helpful, especially when you're trying to impress them with your knowledge. without getting too lost in the jargon. Okay, ready for question number 3?
Hit me. Okay, let's see what they throw at you next.
Hmm.
Question number 3. How do you maintain consistency in your prints?
At first glance, this one seems kind of counterintuitive, right? Isn't art supposed to be all about, like, unique expression?
It is, but consistency is key, especially when you're working on like perfect editions or commissioned pieces. Clients want to know they're getting what they're paying for. This question is really about your attention to detail, your process, how you make sure each print meets a certain standard.
So it's about showcasing those technical skills and proving you're not just like a free spirit, flinging ink everywhere. I'd probably talk about like meticulous documentation, how we carefully control variables like ink viscosity, you know, how thick or thin the ink is, drying times, pressure.
Excellent. Those are all specifics that show you really get it. The factors that impact consistency. And let's say they want to dig a little deeper. And they ask, can you give me an example of a time you had to troubleshoot an inconsistency in your prints? What did you do?
Oh, that's a good one. They're putting my problem-solving skills to the test. I remember this one time I was doing a multi-layer print, and the colors kept turning out muddy.
Oh, no.
I realized the ink wasn't drying properly between the layers. So I adjusted the drying time, experimented with different types of paper, and even talked to another printmaker who had dealt with similar issues before.
Oh, that's great.
Eventually, I figured it out.
That's a perfect example of resourcefulness and a willingness to learn. Speaking of learning, the career guide really stresses how important continuous development is. It mentions workshops, online courses, even just experimenting in your studio.
Right. It's like they say the learning never stops, especially in a field like printmaking. It's always changing, always evolving. Okay, on to question number 4. How do you stay up to date with new printmaking techniques and technology?
This is your chance to show them you're passionate about what you do and that you're committed to staying ahead of the game. They want to see that you're not stuck in the past, clinging to your etching tools while the world's embracing digital innovations.
Speaking of digital exploits, I noticed RoleCatcher was highlighting certain keywords, like 3D printing and digital fabrication. When I plugged in a few job descriptions, it even suggested I mention my experience with laser cutting, which I honestly hadn't even thought about. It's like it knows exactly what employers are looking for.
That's the beauty of AI, right? It can analyze tons of data and pick up on those trends and keywords that we might miss.
Yeah.
Now back to the question, how would you answer that one?
I talk about how much I love experimenting with new materials and techniques. I recently took this workshop on combining traditional woodcut with digital printing. It was mind-blowing.
Wow.
I also follow a bunch of printmakers online, go to conferences, and I'm constantly reading art magazines, looking for the latest trends.
Fantastic. It shows you're curious and plugged into the printmaking world. Now imagine they follow up with this. There seems to be a comeback of traditional techniques. Why do you think that is?
That's an interesting one. I think in a world that's becoming like super digital, people are craving something tactile, handmade, unique, all those qualities that traditional printmaking offers.
Yeah.
There's a soulfulness to it, a story behind each print that you just don't get with like a digital file.
That's a really insightful answer. It connects those cultural trends with the timeless appeal of printmaking.
Speaking of cultural trends, the career guide mentions how there's a growing need for printmakers who can like work across different mediums, combining those traditional techniques with digital processes.
It's the best of both worlds.
Okay, ready for the next question?
Let's do it.
Question number 5. How do you approach collaboration with other artists or clients? This one feels less about like technical stuff and more about those soft skills, you know, those interpersonal skills?
Oh, absolutely. Printmaking can seem like a solo gig, but in reality, most roles involve some level of collaboration, whether it's working with other artists, designers, or clients. They want to know, can you play nice with others? Can you communicate effectively? Can you handle those creative differences that always seem to pop up?
So it's not just about saying, oh, I'm a team player. It's about showing them you understand the dynamics of collaboration and that you can contribute to a positive and productive environment. I'd probably talk about my experience working on group projects, my approach to giving and receiving feedback, and my ability to find creative solutions that everyone's happy with.
Those are all essential ingredients for successful collaboration. Now imagine, say, I can give an example of a time when a collaboration didn't quite go as planned. What did you learn from that?
Ooh, they're digging for those conflict resolution skills now. I remember working on this group printmaking project back in college. And we all had very different ideas
Uh,
for the final P.
yeah, I've been there.
It created a lot of tension and some pretty heated discussions. We eventually found a compromise. But it was a tough lesson in the importance of clear communication, active listening, and respecting different perspectives.
That's a great example of turning a potential negative into a positive learning experience. It shows that you're self-aware, you can learn from your mistakes, and you're dedicated to finding solutions that work for everyone.
Speaking of solutions, RoleCatcher actually has this cool feature that analyzes team dynamics and communication styles based on company reviews and social media profiles.
Oh, wow.
It's like it gives you a sneak peek into the company culture
I love that.
and helps you tailor your answers accordingly.
It's amazing how AI can uncover those subtle insights that would take us hours of research to figure out. Okay, are you ready for the next challenge?
Bring it on. I'm feeling more and more confident with each question.
That's the spirit. Question number 6. Can you discuss a particularly challenging project you've worked on and how you overcame any obstacles?
This one always feels like a test.
Right.
Like they're trying to see if you'll crack under pressure.
It is a test, but it's also an opportunity to showcase your problem-solving skills, your resilience, and your ability to learn and grow from those tough experiences. Pick a project that had some real obstacles. Maybe it was a technical challenge, a tight deadline, or even a creative roadblock. The important thing is to walk them through your thinking, how you identified the problem, the steps you took to solve it, and what you learned along the way.
So it's not just about the problem itself. It's about the solution and the journey you took to get there. I remember working on this large-scale woodcut print, and I accidentally gouged this huge chunk out of the block.
Oh, no.
I was devastated. I almost gave up. But then I started experimenting with different ways to like incorporate the damage into the design.
Interesting.
I ended up carving these series of lines radiating out from the gouge, which actually ended up making the whole composition better.
Oh, wow.
It taught me to embrace those mistakes and find creative solutions when things don't go according to plan.
That's a fantastic story. It shows that you're resourceful, you're adaptable, and you don't back down from a challenge. Now imagine they follow up with this. What's the most important lesson you've learned from a difficult project?
That's a good one. I think the biggest lesson for me is that setbacks are going to happen. It's inevitable. But it's how you deal with them that really defines you. It's about having that growth mindset, being open to feedback, and finding creative ways to turn those challenges into opportunities for learning and growth.
That's a powerful message that applies to any creative field. It shows you're not afraid of making mistakes. You're willing to learn from them. And you see challenges as a chance to push yourself further.
And I bet RoleCatcher would give me a high five for that answer. Speaking of RoleCatcher, the career guide also mentions how important networking is and building those relationships. Within the printmaking community, it talks about attending conferences, joining online forums, even just reaching out to artists whose work you admire.
Yeah, those connections can lead to all sorts of amazing opportunities, collaborations, mentorships, even job leads. It's about building that support system, surrounding yourself with people who share your passion.
Okay, ready for the next question?
Yeah.
This deep dive is flying by.
I'm ready when you are. Let's hear what they've got. All right, we're in the home stretch. Question number 7. How do you incorporate your artistic vision into commissioned work? This one can be a bit tricky, trying to find that balance between your own creative instincts and what the client wants.
Yeah, it's like walking a tightrope between personal expression and meeting those client expectations. I think I'd start by talking about how crucial clear communication is. Really listening to the client's vision, asking those thoughtful questions to make sure you understand their needs, maybe even creating like mood boards or sketches to explore different concepts together. It's all about finding that sweet spot where their vision and my style overlap.
That collaborative approach is so important. It shows you're not just there to follow orders. You're a creative partner who's invested in making the project a success. Imagine they ask, can you give me an example of a time when you had to compromise your artistic vision for a client? How did you handle it?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Let me think. Oh, I remember working on this series of illustrations for a children's book, and the client had this very specific idea for how the characters should look. That didn't really match my usual style.
Oh, yeah.
It was definitely a challenge at first, but I tried to see it as an opportunity to stretch myself, to adapt my style while still staying true to the heart of those characters. We went back and forth a few times with revisions, and eventually we landed on a style that we both loved.
That's great. It sounds like you turned a potential conflict into a win-win.
Mm.
You know, the career guide talks about how important it is to have a strong portfolio that shows how versatile you are. They suggest including a mix of personal work and commissioned pieces to demonstrate your skills and the different styles you can handle.
Right, it's like showing them you can wear all these different creative hats while still having your own unique voice. Okay, ready for question number 8?
Hit me with it.
Question number 8. How do you maintain a balance between creative expression and commercial success? It's the age-old question for artists, right?
It is.
How do you make a living without selling out?
It's a constant balancing act, for sure. This question is less about having the quote-unquote right answer and more about showing them that you thought about this and have a strategy for navigating it.
I'd probably talk about how I approach choosing projects. I try to go for those that align with my own interests, even if they might not be the highest paying ones.
Yeah.
And I've also found ways to, like, sneak in my personal style into commercial work, finding those little opportunities for creative expression within client projects. It's all about finding that balance, knowing when to compromise and when to stand my ground on my artistic vision.
I like that approach. What if they ask you this? Have you ever turned down a project that didn't align with your values or your artistic vision? Tell us about it.
That actually happened to me recently. This company reached out, wanted me to design some promotional stuff for a product I just didn't feel good about.
Mm.
It was a really good paycheck, but it just didn't sit right with me. So I politely declined, explained that my values didn't align with the project. It was a tough call, but in the end, I was glad I stuck to my principles.
That takes guts, and it shows them. You're not just chasing a paycheck, you're building a career. That reflects your values and your integrity as an artist. Speaking of values, did you know RoleCatcher has this feature where you can actually filter job opportunities based on things like company ethics and sustainability practices?
Seriously?
Yeah.
That's amazing. So you can find jobs that match your personal beliefs.
Exactly.
It's like they thought of everything.
Yeah.
Okay, ready for the last question?
Bring it on.
Question number 9. How do you see the role of printmaking evolving in this digital age? This one feels like they're looking for something deeper than just your technical skills. It's like they want to see if you can think big picture and if you're passionate about the future of printmaking.
It's your chance to share your insights. Show them you're not just a skilled printmaker, but a thoughtful artist who's thinking about where the industry's headed.
I'd probably talk about how I've started using digital tools in my own work, like using design software to create my images or experimenting with 3D printing to make these cool textures. But I'd also emphasize the things that digital art just can't replace. That tactile feeling of a hand-pulled print, the tiny imperfections that make each one unique, that connection between the artist's hand and the finished piece. I think people are starting to really appreciate those things in a world that's becoming so digital.
That's a great point. It's about understanding the value of those traditional techniques while still being open to the possibilities of new technology. And speaking of new technology, let's not forget about how RoleCatcher has helped us prep for this interview, from analyzing job descriptions and finding those keywords to giving us feedback on our answers and even connecting us with potential employers. It's been like having this secret weapon.
This has definitely given me a boost. I feel so much more confident now, like I really get the industry, the questions, even myself as an artist.
That's what it's all about. And remember, this is just the start. The world of printmaking is full of amazing opportunities, just waiting to be discovered.
So to all you aspiring printmakers out there, embrace those opportunities. Keep learning, keep experimenting, and never stop creating. And if you need a little help along the way, don't be afraid to tap into the power of AI. Who knows, maybe someday we'll see your work hanging in a gallery or featured in a magazine.
Until then, happy printing, everyone.